Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Michael with the Real 1%, back at you guys and girls with another episode of military to civilian transition, the last assault, the last mission, as I've been calling it. And I'm here with my sister Jen. How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I appreciate you stopping through. And Jen is still in the military, and without what we're going to touch on today is a little bit different than I've been talking about in the past. Same concepts, but just from a different standpoint. Someone that's that's been in the field of helping people. She's an author. I don't want to spoil all the things that she's going to tell you guys about. I don't really give anyone like a crazy intro, at least not yet. But without further ado, for the listeners on, Jen, would you mind just introducing yourself and sort of letting them know a little bit about your background, and then what sort of brought us here to this conversation today, and then we'll dive into some of those topics.
Absolutely. So my name is Jen Garrett, and I am an Army judge advocate still serving in the Michigan Army National Guard. Outside of that, I do a lot of speaking and coaching and training and helping people on how to, as I say, move the ball when it comes to your career and to really position you for that career path that you're interested in. I do that working with a lot of veterans, transitioning service members, as well as corporate professionals and pro athletes. I know we're going to talk about some of that, Michael, so I won't say too much there. I also host a podcast called Move the Ball. So you might hear me say that phrase a few times throughout our conversation today. And then I also have authored a couple of books, which we can talk about as well. So that is a little bit about me. Oh, one other thing I'll share. I spent many, many years working in Fortune 50 companies, so big organizations in executive level roles. And so I've spent a lot of time looking and cultivating talent and helping people to grow their career. So I just want to share some of that insight with all of you today. So I'm excited for our chat.
Okay, I appreciate you sharing that with everybody, Jen, and looking forward to dive in. So, what made you want to join the Army?
I've always wanted to serve ever since I was a kid. It was always important to me to do that. And so my path was a little bit different because I had a career and I went to law school, not right out of undergrad. So I joined the Army a little bit later than the normal officer even, but I've always just wanted to serve and be a part of a community. And so, this was my way to do that.
Okay, too easy. How's your time
Mhm.
been so far?
It's been great. Yeah, I've gotten to meet some amazing people. Like any organization, there's good and bad. Not every day is amazing, not but it's a great organization to be a part of. Met some phenomenal people, got to work on some great things, so no complaints.
Okay, too easy. And if you had any complaints, like no one cares anyways, right? So it's like
That's right.
you're all good anyways. So what brought you to the point of like sort of helping, like what got you into the role that you're in now, like helping out all the athletes, helping out veterans, helping out other people. Did you leave Fortune 50 and head right to there, or what happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, for me, I've always had this service mindset, service to others mentality. And so I've always tried to help people throughout my entire career. And so, one thing that worked out really well for me is I was always afforded like opportunities to grow in my career early on. So, I was in senior leadership in Fortune 50 companies in my 20s. And people would be like, wow, that's amazing. And I was a single parent with kids. And so, people would be like, well, how do you do all of these things? I want to learn from you. I'm inspired by you. And so I really just, realized that I had an opportunity through my struggles and my journey to help other people feel like they could do whatever they wanted in their life, regardless. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different circumstances, but I had a knack, I would say, for kind of just helping people to feel like they could do something. They could start from a place of yes instead of a place of no when it came to working on their goals. And so that's kind of what got me into it. The reason I left Fortune 50 was it's interesting how life kind of gives us different things that we don't expect. And my dad passed away very unexpectedly, which made me pause and rethink what I was doing, not because I was unhappy, but because I wanted to make a bigger impact and really leave a legacy. And so that's why I left Fortune 50 to really go and serve people in a different capacity versus just, working in a big company and, looking at profits and making an impact that way.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to hear about your father. That's definitely a
Thank you.
tough pill to swallow. You're welcome. And yeah, I heard something from someone, and they said along the lines of, if someone's paying you $250,000, they that company knows that they own you. They them. They're so that's a little bit kind of hard to do your own legacy if you're working under someone else's belt, right? Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really is just, it depends on, I mean, everybody's got different circumstances. So for some people, you can work in a full-time job and do stuff on the side to, build a legacy of your own. For me, though, I mean, I had 5 kids, single parent. And so to build what I wanted to build, I just couldn't do both of them. And
Yeah.
so I think we all can make an impact in whatever way is important to us. And so you just need to think about what is that thing that you want to bring into the world? What is that legacy you want to leave behind? And then you figure out what's the best way to do that. Is it working in a company and doing something through that company? Is it working for yourself? And so I don't think there's a cookie cutter approach. It really just depends on what your circumstances are.
No, absolutely. So what did yours look like? Did you start drawing what you really wanted your why out when you were working in Fortune 50, or did it really take till your father passed away for you to really get to the drawing board and say, hey, let me start rearranging everything and go for this approach?
Yeah, it was before my dad passed away, because I had written my first book called Move the Ball.
Okay.
And, my thought was that would be the side hustle. And I would just go and sell books and speak and do things around that as I had time. And what had happened over time was people started posting on social media how they were moving the ball. So Move the Ball, the book, was all about how do you take American football principles and strategies and apply them to be successful in business, in your career, in life, in everything that you do. And I wanted people to start thinking of, I just got to move the ball every day, move it an inch, a foot, a yard. Like, I just got to keep moving. And if I keep doing that, then I'm going to get in the end zone. I'm going to score. I'm going to win whatever is important to me. And so in not pushing is not the right word, but in sharing that approach and that mentality, people started posting about their successes and how they were, quote unquote, moving the ball every day. And so what I realized was that people were gravitating towards this notion, and that was the thing, that was the legacy that I was meant to leave behind, was to help people, quote unquote, move the ball. So it was already in the works before I left. And then when my dad passed, that's when I really realized that was the opportunity that I had been given through this concept that I had created a few years prior to that, to really go build something out and make something great.
Wow, that's amazing. So you had it working, and then you just went full on after your dad passed. So was it intimidating leaving like what you're used to, or was it like the unknown, or how'd you feel?
It wasn't so much the unknown per se, because I think when you have people that fall under the category of being high performers, like, you can put them in any situation and they'll figure it out. So it wasn't intimidation of like, I don't know what to do. I was like, I'll figure it out. It was more about, okay, I'm leaving my guaranteed paycheck, which wasn't a
Yeah.
bad one, to go. And like I mentioned, I have 5 kids. I was a single parent. So it was a very hard decision to walk away from that guaranteed paycheck every 2 weeks. It wasn't because of the unknown. It was just like, oh, that's a lot of money that's not going to be there, So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but once I had made the decision, and it took me a little bit. I mean, I had a date that I was going to leave. It was going to be April 29th, 2019. That day came and went, because I was like, not ready yet. May 29th. So I'm all about doing things with a purpose and intention. And so
Yeah.
I wanted to leave on a 29, because my birthday is on June 29. So I wanted it to be 29 to be a day. So May 29th came, and I was like, nope, not ready yet. I'm like, I'm not leaving on my birthday, July 29th. It's the Army JAG Corps birthday. Perfect day to leave. That day came, not ready yet. There was always an excuse. And a friend of mine was like, well, you just need to stop. You just need to go. And I'm like,
Yeah.
well, you don't understand. You don't have kids. You've been an entrepreneur, but you have no kids, to my friend Corey. So I'm like, it's a little different scenario. And so, long story short, November 5th, and so it's not a 29. November 5th is the day that I left, but November 5th would have been my dad's birthday. So for me, there was no better day to make like the biggest change of my life than that day.
Yeah, that's interesting. It was not going to be your birthday to be caught up with, right? Like, I'm not going to have my birthday associated with me leaving this job. You're like, yeah, okay. Well, so what did it look like after you left and you started doing your own thing? Were you going on a lot of different speaking engagements? Going with your book, selling your book, or what did you end up start doing?
Well, so I ended up leaving November 5th, 2019. March
Okay.
2020, COVID hit. So the whole world changed. And so the things that I had planned on doing, which was working with big companies and helping them also on like doing personal development training, leadership training, None of that. That market was gone in an instant, right? The world shut down. So nobody needed what I was looking to do. So I ended up thinking about, okay, well, what other things can I do to really to bring in money? I mean, to
Yeah.
serve too, but I mean, now I just left my job. So I do have bills to pay and I need to figure out what am I going to do to support my family. And one of the things I had always been doing and I knew how to do well was help people when it came to navigating their career. How do you brand yourself? How do you package yourself and all of your experience in a way that's going to drive interest from whatever industry you're looking at, and how do you set yourself apart from your competition? So I started doing that. And in the beginning, I was like, I have a side hustle to my hustle, and I wasn't really, I wasn't loving it. I was like, well, this sucks. I left my job to go focus on this other thing, but now I'm doing something else. And I'm like, well, you got to do what you got to do. But I really that was not really what excited me. And a friend of mine said to me, she's like, you're looking at it the wrong way. She said, you left to help people move the ball. What you are doing with them in their careers, you're helping them to move the ball. So, view it differently. And I think you'll be okay. And she was right. Cause then I was like, okay, yeah, it's helping someone in a different direction. Cause my focus originally was doing more leadership development training and working with big companies as my client and shifting to working with individuals and helping them. I mean, it's been an incredible feeling when I get a phone call or an email or a text from someone that says, hey, Jen, I just wanted to let you know that I got an amazing new job and it's because of you. That makes me feel good.
Yeah, absolutely. You're serving others, and
right.
when you hear that coming back to you, that's what you're doing. That's your why right there, like you said.
Right.
So that's like me, like doing the podcast. Like, yeah, I don't have anything out of it, but I feel good doing it. So if you feel good doing it, that's probably something that you're supposed to be doing. It's not like we're doing anything bad. You're trying to help others. So good for you. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Keep it up. No problem. So what led you to do your second book?
Yeah. So the first book was called Move the Ball. The second book, so I'm a sports person, as you know, Michael. I work with a lot of pro athletes. And so like sports are kind of my thing. And I love to write. I love to motivate and help inspire people too. And so I was actually in Tampa, Florida, and I was at dinner with a friend of mine who's a sports agent. And we were talking about how professional athletes, how football players, when they leave their sport and they go work in businesses, they're really great employees because they show up, they're conditioned to perform, and so they come to work whether if they're not feeling it or not, they're just disciplined and they come and they show up and they do the work. And so in that moment when we were talking about it, I started thinking about, well, how am I showing up every single day? And how I was able to build a global brand in the world of sports was because I showed up the right way. And so I thought, that's the book. That's what I'm going to write about. Because people will always ask me, well, Jen, they'll see like things that I'll post online. I was with Emmett Smith or with Michael Irvin. I was just with Michael Irvin last weekend. And people will see that and they're like, oh my gosh, well, how did you do all this? And there's a lot of things that I did to be where I'm at. But at its core, it was all about believing in yourself, not taking the no's, and showing up the right way and putting in the work that you needed to put in every day to get you there. Were there a lot of no's along the way? Yes. Were there a lot of failures? Yep. Were there a lot of headaches? All of those things happen. So it's not like just show up and it's all going to work out, but it's continuing to be consistent and put in the work and do the work that a lot of people won't do. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is they get upset because they're not seeing the results they want, but they're not putting in the work. So,
absolutely.
That's the problem. Everybody in today's, not everybody, but as a generalization, society is so conditioned to this instant gratification that when you don't get that hit immediately, then you're frustrated. And it's like, that's not how it works. It takes a long time to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, they didn't see all the stuff that you put in, behind the scenes. They're just, you see a picture and you see it's 4 or 5 years after the fact. You were doing everything behind the scenes. Like, come on now. Yeah. I guess it's a double-edged sword too, because like me personally, I do like some reselling stuff like on eBay, right, for a business. And like a lot of people that are doing good in there, they say it's no better time to succeed now because no one wants to put the work in. That's like, it's almost like that in every business. So if you just work hard, and like I was never the best, probably the most talented athlete either, but I always worked hard and I always made the team, for the most part, or always got a playing spot, so it's like same thing in business. You just keep going. That's what I've been realizing as I've gotten older. I'm like, it's kind of the same thing as playing a sport. You're just doing different stuff, right?
For sure. And so it's all about how you show up in that. So that second book is titled, the main title is Dominate the Game. The subtitle is How Life Changes When You Show Up. Because when you do the right things every day and you prioritize those activities, you are going to see the results. It might not be as quickly as you want, but if you're consistent, you will see them. You just have to stick at it. Sometimes, the timeline isn't what we want that timeline to be. But when you look at like people will, they think that the Move the Ball book and this whole movement, and they see the podcast, like they think it just popped up a couple of years ago. I'm like, it's been 10 years since I wrote Move the Ball. Okay. 10 years. So 10 years of building this brand to get to where it is. And I'm by no means, anywhere close to where I want it to go, but it takes a lot of time to get to where you want to go sometimes. And people, they just lose sight of that.
No, absolutely. And I mean, 10 years is a constant grind. And it's like, I'm sure you've had times of like, in the early stages, you might say I'm good, or I don't know. Maybe that wasn't like you. Let me not assume, but I'm sure everyone, and that always runs through someone's mind, like because you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're doing something that you're not used to doing, but you're going to grow from it if you keep going. It's like going to the gym or anything. Like it's like the more reps you put in, the better you're going to get. Like even talking on the camera before, I might have been looking. I don't know. I still might be looking crazy. I don't know, but I know I've been doing it 40, 50 times now. So every time you can get on, you can try to better yourself. But, it's hard to try to be the best version of yourself. That's what I try to tell people sometimes, because it's easy to be complacent. Am I complacent? Of course. I'm there too sometimes. I'm not like over here gung-ho every day. It's kind of the opposite when you're doing your own thing and trying to be, and you're an entrepreneur. Sometimes you can be time is not in your favor. You want to get all that stuff knocked out and get on with your day, but sometimes it just doesn't go on like that. As well as I do, you got 5 kids, life happens, you're here, you're there, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, but you've never given up. So props to you for just being persistent and having that drive to keep it going. 10 years is a long time, but you look back, it probably went by fast.
It does. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years. So I've not been an entrepreneur full-time that whole time, because I left in 2019, but that's when the book came out. And like when I wrote that book, I was all gung-ho. I didn't know any person in the sports industry when I wrote that book. No, zero industry contacts. And so it was really about just putting yourself out there. I would physically go to different events and places that I knew there would be people that I wanted to try to connect with. This is 2013. So social media wasn't what it is today. LinkedIn isn't what it is. Twitter, Instagram, all of those things where it's easier to connect in a virtual space. You had to physically show up to places. And so that's what I did. And a lot of people didn't really care, but you just got to push through, and you have to recognize a couple things. And I write about this in the second book, is that not everyone is meant to be on the journey with you. And so there were a lot of people early on that didn't see my value, didn't see what I was doing, and they're not on the journey today. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You just got to keep, you got to know what your why is, walk in your purpose. And when you do that, the right people will be attracted to you. And interestingly, there are some people that discounted me way back then that now they're good friends with me. I don't say anything to them about like, I remember way back in the day, but they've come around, and that's okay too. Sometimes the timing is not right. But there's a story that I think of. Jamie Kern Lima. She had founded this company. It Cosmetics is what it was called. And It Cosmetics was it was cosmetics designed for people that had certain skin conditions, rosacea and stuff. And Jamie had built this from scratch, and she was, trying to get a deal with QVC, and they told her no. And, she dealt with all the no's. She kept going, right? It's not about the no's, it's about getting to the yeses. And so she kept doing her thing. She ended up selling her company to L'Oreal for, I think, 1.7 billion. And that guy from QVC that had told her no ended up working for her later on. And so, I mean, you just never know how things come back around. And so there's a time for people to be on the journey with you, and there's a time for them not to be, and some will never be. And just remember that's okay. Like the right people will be there with you. So don't let the no's or the people that don't see the value or don't see your worth, don't let them get in your way. You just have to keep walking in your purpose.
You got to keep moving the ball.
That's right. Yes. Thank you.
So what was some of the hardest things that you felt like when you were going along your journey to actually keep your ball moving? Like, especially the one that stuck out to me that you just were talking on, just like having the right people around you, because you're right. Like when you felt like you were all alone, like what kept you going? Obviously you got family, you got your kids, But like, how'd you find the other people too as well? I guess it's like a 2-3 part question.
Sure. Yes. I mean, what keeps you going should be your why. We all have what our why is different depending what that is. And so, that helps keep you going when you stay connected to that purpose. And that's whether you're in a company or you're an entrepreneur, like it doesn't matter. It's situation agnostic. You need to know what your purpose is. And then it's really about just thinking about who are the people who you surround yourself matters. We know that. And so thinking about what kind of people do I want to align myself with. And I'll give you I'll go off on a slight tangent, because when I was in Fortune 50 companies, I was always focused on, I want to learn from the senior leaders. I want to connect. I want to network. I want to get to know those people versus just hanging around with my peers. It's great to know your peers too, but I was trying to climb the ladder. So who am I going to learn better from? The people that are already there. Right. So no matter what field you're in, whether you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur, you want to really cultivate your network and make sure that you're including people in your network that have walked in the shoes that you want to go in. So that way you can learn from them. You can, continue to be motivated when things might not work out as well. But so I would challenge people watching or listening to just think about who's in your circle. Who do you want to be in your circle? Not necessarily by name. It can be by name, but what type of people are you interested in connecting with? And the thing today is that technology allows us the opportunity to really reach anyone on the planet. So put yourself out there and don't be afraid to connect. Whereas a lot of people, they don't do that. And so it's so easy now, whereas 20 years ago, if I were trying to build my brand in football, there's no platform like LinkedIn or Twitter or Instagram. I'd have to physically go somewhere or maybe look in the yellow pages, but that, you know what I mean? Like it's so different. Times have changed. And so it's so easy to be able to connect with people now that you really don't have an excuse. Like people will come to me and they'll be like, hey, I want to get into sports and I don't know anyone. And I said, I would be like, well, just start networking. And they're like, well, I don't know how, because I don't know anybody. And I'm like, there was a time I didn't know. You just got to put yourself out there. And there's a way to network effectively. There's a way to do it not so effectively. So, I mean, you got to do it the right way. And if I could just put a small plug, I did an episode on my Move the Ball podcast where I did talk about how to network like a pro. So, if you're thinking about networking and you're not comfortable with it, or you're looking for some guidance there, I'd love for you to check out that episode. Just Google Move the Ball podcast, network like a pro, and it should pop up.
Okay. All right. No problem on that. I mean, yeah, that's definitely, they say your network is your net worth. So you got to have some people that are up there around, right? Yes. So like transitioning from the military to civilian, and then from pro athlete to civilian lifestyle, what are some of the things that you've seen that both parties struggle with?
Part of it for some people is the identity, because in both of those situations, your identity has been around being in the service, wearing the uniform as an example. Same thing on the pro athlete side. And so it's making that transition when you haven't, I would say, laid the foundation before it's time to leave. Now, I'm going to talk about the football context for a second. In the football space, a lot of people end up hanging their cleats up before they plan on it because they get injured, for example, or a team cuts them and there's not another opportunity. In the military, I mean, you can have an injury or something that ends up, you get medically discharged or whatever. But aside from that, if you are healthy, right, then you're either, if you're enlisted, you have an ETS date, or if you're an officer, you're maybe planning when it's time for you to hang it up if you're going to retire or just be done with the service. But regardless of what your situation is, before you're planning on leaving or even an unplanned leave, I mean, I think everyone should be thinking about, hey, this day could come unexpectedly or expectedly, so I should start planning things just in case something happens before I want it to, or when it's time for me to consciously make that decision to transition out of the military. And so we talked about networking just a minute ago. I would say that is something that when I talk to veterans, transitioning service members, as well as athletes, that's something that I emphasize is start thinking about what is it that you would be interested in so that you can build a network before you leave. Start reaching out to people, start building relationships, so that way you're better equipped for making that transition. Another thing that both groups tend to struggle with are not knowing what they can do, because as you know, Michael, it's like, military skill set is unique in some of the things that we do, right? And in the sports space, there's things that people do that you're not going to do in other settings. And so it's really about trying to figure out what are the core skills that are transferable, and how do you communicate those to people that are civilians so they understand what you've done in this more specialized area, but how that still brings value to them. And that's what I work with a lot of people on, is how do you use the right verbiage, the right vernacular terminology that's going to resonate with the person that you're trying to get in front of, so that way they understand how what you did before in the service or in sports can translate to their organization and be of value.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Some people just, you go from getting told every day what you're gonna do, or like you said, they're conditioned to show up every day for practice or PT, and then that's gone one day, and it's kind of like wide open. You can either take it, you could be straight discipline. You mean, do a lot of guys, I guess guys that you mostly deal with, do they struggle with just finding like that? Do you deal with a lot of people that are retired, honestly, or just ETSing, or a little bit of both?
Both. I deal with all. So I mean, yeah, it's different when you're in the military or you're in the sports space and you have a schedule, right? You're told where to be, when to be, what to wear, that kind of thing. And then all of that's gone, right? And now there you are sitting in your apartment or your house or your condo, and you're like, what am I going to do today? Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you have to be very, very self-disciplined in, just taking something I talk about on the podcast a lot, as well as in the books, is you have to take ownership over where you're going in your career. And so it's really about thinking about, where is it that I want to go? What skills do I have today? What skills do I need to get to that career path that really interests me? Because a lot of people, what they'll do is they'll just take whatever they can get. They got bills to pay, they got to get a job, and so they just settle for anything that comes their way because they need to do that, versus being more deliberate and strategic with, okay, I'm really interested in X. Let me put together a strategy to be able to get to X as a career field. Let me pull in the right people from a networking standpoint. Let me make sure that I have a playbook, if you will, for getting the skills, the things that I need to be successful, to position me for that career.
So absolutely have a plan. Do a lot of people that you deal with in the professional sports, do they start planning like you talk to people in the, I've never talked to a lot of pro athletes, definitely not about transition. So is it something that some of them pick up a little bit sooner than others and start planning for, like, if they're older guys? Because like you said, a lot of them end on injury, and maybe they're 22 years old and they're thinking they're going to have another 5 or 6 years at least in the league, and then they get prone on injury, and then they're out, and they're kind of just out there. I mean, have you ever dealt with anyone like that that's sort of been on a short end of the time?
Well, the average NFL career is 2.5 years, so it's very short. And so most guys know that. And as time has progressed with the advent of social media, and there's all kinds of information being pushed out, more and more guys know today know that this could be a very short-lived career. And especially if you're what they call a bubble player, so you're an undrafted free agent, you're drafted 6th or 7th round, then that like you might bounce around from team to team. So you really understand the business side of the NFL. Whereas some people that are first round draft picks, as an example, they don't take it seriously because they have this big contract that they've just gotten and they think that they're untouchable. It's not everybody. I know a lot of guys that were drafted first round, and most of them tend to be pretty down to earth, good people, but there are some that think that they're untouchable and that nothing's going to happen to them. But I think as a whole, more guys know now than 20 years ago, as an example, that this is a business, this is your job, you are a professional, and at any time this can end. So you better be thinking about what else can you do, or should you be doing, so that when it does come time to end, either your choice or not, that you have laid that foundation to be able to then be successful, because you have a lot more years working after playing football.
Yeah, absolutely. You do. Even after you get out of the military, you still got a lot more years, right? I mean, even if you do 20, you still got a long time. So that's good. What's one thing that you'd say the military, has taught you over your long haul?
That's a great question. So I would say, obviously there's the teamwork aspect, and you're working with different functions of people to achieve the mission, right? And so you have to be able to communicate well with people that have different styles, that have different backgrounds, because you do have a diverse group of people that are in the military. So it's about knowing how to communicate effectively, knowing how to work as a team. And then, as you know, Michael, I mean, then when you're in the military, the bonds that you have with people are super, super strong. They're your brothers and sisters in arms. And so it really drives a sense of community and purpose to achieve whatever that objective is that you're looking to accomplish. And so I think that is an important set of skill sets to take out of the military context and to be effective leaders when it comes to civilian life.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I mean, you're absolutely right. The bonds that we make in the military, you're going to remember for the rest of your life. It could be some of your best friends. I'm sure you've probably met people even from your first duty station or basic training, or you might still know and talk to today. So, that's just rough out there, for the military community, when they don't think there's, they don't have an outlet or they don't have something to go get help from. But there are a lot of things, like you said, over the 20 years. I mean, they probably even have the ACAP program or the TAPS, like the transition assistance program, like nowhere near. It's probably leaps and bounds better today. But yeah, absolutely. I had like a substandard game plan, I guess, when I got out the military. I had a job lined up and I was like going to do that. But sometimes the game plan that you have, that's your first game plan, might not be the game plan that's going to come in. They're going to call an audible, or, let's get right. They're going to call an audible. They're going to blitz you. Life's going to blitz you, and you're gonna need like part two. So don't give up if you're out there, in the whoever you are, even if you're not in the military, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your dreams or your goals, and just keep going after for, something that you guys love to do, and, continue to help each other and help others, because that's all we're trying to do here. Spread the word, get people on here, talk about their experiences. And, everyone's going through something. You see, we got professional athletes that make millions of dollars going through the same type of problems that people are getting out of the military have. Yeah, granted, the money's not everything. It's like your life's worth more than money itself. Can't put a dollar sign on your life. So there's help out here. You just got to kind of plug yourself in and find your network. Like I didn't know you. I just hit you up, right? But you answered. Like you tell everyone to answer on your LinkedIn. You say, message me.
Yes.
A lot of people on LinkedIn are open. I've found it very amazing. People are doing stuff on LinkedIn. They're not like bashing Facebook or whatever, because Facebook can be great too. But a lot of people on Facebook are either showing their best or their worst, or they're like, doing something else. LinkedIn, people are like willing to connect with you. I've used it for jobs. I've used it for this podcast. We're connecting, and you never know where it can go, because you talking to someone with 40,000 followers. You never know who's going to see you or who's going to hear you, or, what I'm saying? It's like a domino effect. So just appreciate you answering, the call to action and jumping on here and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with everyone. It's great. I mean, makes me want to go harder. I only got one kid. I got no excuse. I got some more degrees to get. I got something. I'm working on it. Working on number 2. So I'm behind you.
Well, it's not a compare. Don't compare.
No, I'm messing with you. It's me against me. Honestly, it's not. Yeah. I don't really care if you got your own set of goals, and you're you and I'm me, and it's like you only can compete against yourself. So we all have the same ability and all have the same chance to do what we got to do.
Sure. Can I jump in? Because I do want to say something about
Sure.
reaching out, since you mentioned how you had reached out to me on LinkedIn. I think it's such an important, it's a professional community. A lot of people think that LinkedIn is just for looking for jobs, and it's not. So really use it to build your network. But here's the thing, there's a right way, as I said, and a wrong way to do it. So when you are reaching out to someone, this is a very tactical tip. When you are reaching out to somebody, remember, put yourself in their shoes. You want to make it very easy for them to want to connect with you, right? So one, do not send them paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of stuff, right? You want to be nice, warm, friendly. Hi, such and such. I saw your post, or you're in the space. I'd love to connect with you. Mention that you're a vet too. People like to connect with vets. And so, but don't bombard them with information, because they're busy. So you want it to be short, sweet, to the point. Hi, I'd love to connect, whatever. And that's important. And then I think the other thing is, if you want to have a conversation, make an ask. Say, hey, I'd love to pick your brain on this. If you're in the service and you're looking to transition out, or you're newly transitioned out and you're trying to find yourself and explore things, let them know that. People love to feel like they are being helpful for other people if you seem sincere and genuine in your message. So just remember to put yourself in their shoes too when you're writing your message, to be short and sweet and nice and respectful. And then, just let them know if you want to get on a call with them. Do not be like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can I send you my resume? Build a relationship first. I'm telling you, I see this all the time.
I believe you. That's why I'm laughing. They probably, hey, this is my salary requirements. Can you help me? I don't know. Like right to the point. Yeah.
Don't just make an ask. Build a relationship with someone. Get on the phone with them. Have a Zoom. Have a call. Whatever. You can make an ask throughout that if it feels right. Don't force it. If it feels right to make the ask, or if they say, "How can I help you?" by all means, make an ask, but don't go into it thinking, well, I'm going to ask them for this and this. And if you're going to make an ask, make one ask. Don't have too many things that you're asking from them too. Again, build the relationship first. And over time, it's okay to do that. But again, just build that relationship.
Absolutely. Thanks for the advice.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you going to write another book?
I was about to say no. It's a lot of work. I mean, I think I'm someone who loves to write, so I don't want to say that it's a hard no. There maybe, but it won't be for a while because there's just so many things that I want to do. There's so many things I can do with the current book, and so I want to make sure that I'm giving that time to really not realize its full potential, but to really, use that to serve people before I say, oh, hey, here's another thing, so it'll be a while, but there might be another book coming at some point. Not like in the next year or two for sure, but there might be one later.
No. Okay. All right. Yeah. And where can they get your books again? Amazon?
Yeah, so Move the Ball and Dominate the Game are both on Amazon. If you are one of those people that like to have personalized copies of books for orders on Amazon, I don't fulfill them, so I'm not involved in that process. I do have a website that you can go to if you want, a personal touch or a signature on it. It's dominateandmove.com.
Okay. All right. No problem. Thanks for sharing that as well. Yeah. So how much longer you got in the Army you left?
9 years.
What you gonna do when you retire? You traveling the world, or any plans?
That's a little bit further out than I've planned. I mean, I am an intentional and deliberate person, but because I'm a National Guardsman, I do have my other business as well. So it's not like I just have my military career. So I'll still be working. There might be some travel in there, but we'll see.
Okay. All right. Well, fair enough. I appreciate you coming on today and sharing your story. And do you have anything else you want to maybe close off with before we shut it down?
Sure. I mean, I think it's important for you to remember that you always have a choice and that you deserve to have whatever it is that you want in life. Sometimes people feel like they've gotten so down on their luck that they just don't think they deserve to have the life that they want, the career, the paycheck. They allow these negative thoughts to get in their head. And so the thing to keep in mind is you have the choice on where you want to go. It's about taking that ownership and making the right choices and showing up the right way to be able to get you on that path. But that choice ultimately resides with you. So it's really about taking ownership. I always say own your game and make sure that you're the one that's driving that ball forward because you want to move it forward. But it all starts with you. It's not like a lot of people in the military, you're told, okay, go to this school, do these things, and then you'll get to that next rank. Well, in the civilian world, that's not how it works. You drive everything. So you have to make sure that you're the one looking at what are the strategies that I want to put into place? What are the choices that I should be making each and every day to help me get to where I want to go? And also, who should I have on my team to help me? So, make sure that you're, again, working on that networking piece like we talked about so that you do have a good group of people that are helping you to get to where you want to go. And I guess I'll just say one other thing, Michael, if you want to, hear some other tips or strategies or things on how to move the ball, I hope you'll check out the Move the Ball podcast, which is on all the podcast platforms.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. I'm gonna check some episodes out, and I appreciate you coming on here. I mean, how about this? Like, what happens if you deal with some past interferences or some penalties? What's your advice for when you get those setbacks? Like if someone, someone that's on the entrepreneurial journey, and may have left the same thing that you did. You know, it's easy to say keep going and like words of encouragement, but for someone
Sure.
like you that you've been through it, like, you know, I guess it all really goes back to the why, right? You know, the why has to be so powerful that you can get through anything, essentially, right?
Sure. Well, something that a lot of pro athletes say is, in the sports world, they talk about controlling what you can control. So you can't always influence or affect everything that's going on in the world around you, but you can always control your attitude, the choices you make, and what you choose to focus your time and energy on. So those that you want to control, the things that you have control over, don't worry about the rest. And then you pivot and you adjust as you need to, just like in a football game, they make adjustments as the environment changes or depending on what's going on in the game and with the other people that are on the field. But it's really about focusing on what are the things that you can do and have effect over versus worrying and wasting time on everything else that's going on.
Okay. Hey, fair enough. You're
Mhm.
right. Can only can control what you can control. Everything else is out of your hands.
Mhm.
You know, so well, I appreciate you coming on today and sharing some of your story. I wish you all the best. I look forward to having a relationship with you and learning some more, and maybe even learn. Gets probably help you. Maybe get some help from you for writing a book. Maybe one day. You never know.
Reach out anytime. And thank you for having me on. It was great chatting with you.
All right, sounds good. Thanks everyone for listening in. Until next time, have a blessed one.